Hey, welcome to the Milk and Sugar Effects podcast series, Mavericks. I'm James Lennox. It's great to have you along for the ride again. Don't forget to subscribe to the series for any new content drops that we do. Now, over the past couple of weeks, or past couple of episodes even, we've been chatting to a family of entrepreneurs, the Bibbies. And today, it's the turn of pater familiar, the big daddy of them all, Darren Bibby, who is the father of a bunch of entrepreneurs and married to an entrepreneur. Thanks for joining us on Mavericks, Darren.
Thank you, James.
How would you describe yourself? Would you call yourself an entrepreneur, an inventor, an innovator, a disruptor, a problem solver?
Psychopath.
Okay, that wasn't on the list.
But all of the above.
Oh, really? Is that what it takes to be an entrepreneur in the kind of line of business that you're in? That you have to be that you have to be an innovator, that you have to be an inventor?
I think inventor wasn't really where I started. I think I would rather term myself as a problem solver. And that's something that even when we have conversations with your spouse or your wife starts talking, she wants to describe a whole story. I'm just thinking, can we get to the executive summary? And can we get to the stage where I can just solve your problem? That's natural to me, is I am a problem solver. And I think as part of that, we've then used that in a business sense. So
your business is AirCure. What problems are you currently solving?
For the last 32 years, I started out removing cigarette smoke. And at a time when you would walk into buildings and people would light up, and while you're trying to explain that you need a separate room or to smoke outside, people would go, but what's wrong with cigarette smoke? And so we started with that. And then I got involved with the mines and doing a lot of underground working with trying to stop people getting silicosis or lung diseases from the dust. And it then morphed into air pollution, where we started getting involved with emissions and trying to minimize the emissions from the likes of Sasol and Score Metals and Sappies, etc.
And is that what you're still doing? AirCure is still involved in air pollution and cleaning air?
Very much so. That's what we're doing.
So here's the thing. Clean air is something that we all, in many respects, take for granted. I mean, I know, like, if I walk outside or even sitting here, I'm breathing in fresh air and I don't even think about it. What kicked it all off for you that you wanted to make sure that people breathed fresh, clean, unpolluted air?
I don't think there was a moment as such. I think I've always had I had a dislike for cigarette smoke. That was part of the reason. And I thought, well, okay, I don't mind them smoking there, but I didn't want to breathe it. So that was one thing. But it really dawned on me when we were dealing with people underground. And when you study or look at silicosis, and I tried to explain this once, and one of the visuals is to put a straw in someone's mouth, block their nose, and let them breathe just through the straw. And it starts getting hard, and you start realizing what it is to fight for air. And I often say to people that you can do without food for 30 days. You can do sort of 3 days without sort of water, but you got about 3 minutes without air. And most times you say it's taken for granted. Until you can't breathe, it's not something you consciously think about. You take for granted.
So one would imagine that this has been an easy ride for you. You know, convincing people that fresh air.
I'm selling fresh air and trying to charge for it. And people, unfortunately, the places where we do have emissions tend to be outlying areas where you've got the power stations and whatever. The head offices are in Sandton. And the guy, I'm sure, who's ever writes the check, looks out the window and goes, what are they all on about? It's blue skies here. But it's not blue skies in Witbank, and it's not blue skies in Vereniging. So it is a hard sell. Make no mistake, it's hard to explain how urgent it is that we resolve this. But somebody living in Witbank, it's urgent.
And you were also speaking about people in the mines. It's people underground, people that, for the most part, the majority of Johannesburgers, A, either don't think about or B, don't care about. but they're the ones who are suffering at a rate that we are unaware of. Why did you specifically want to go into, I mean, is there a sense of altruism behind what you want to do, that you care that people live healthy lives?
I think you grow into a passion. You move in the direction where you can see what the effects of not solving the problem. And once you see that a human being who has lost lung function, it's bloody scary. And that then does turn it into more of a quest. And it's a righteous quest. It's the right thing to do. It's not something that is necessarily a fun thing, but it's a life thing. I've given my life to this, and that's what I want to do.
It's really interesting in that the big thing, it seems at the moment, in a particular segment of the demographic of entrepreneurs, is that, I mean, that sounds a bit poncy, but the business with purpose seems to be the big thing at the moment in the way in which businesses are going. It's no longer about, we don't want to be a corporate that's all about the money. We want to have a purpose for what we're doing. It sounds to me, actually, if one's honest, that you are a pioneer in this kind of space, because to do it, you were saying you're doing it for the right reasons. That must give you a sense of like, I beat you all to it. Or is it more just, that's not what it's about?
It's not. The obvious question is, what's the kicker? What's the reason why you do it? I want to solve problems, and I get the biggest kick out of solving a particular problem. And that's what it's about. But everything else will take you to a point, and you will give up if you don't believe this 100%. If it's not that quest, if it's not something that consumes you, I think you'll give it up.
So because business with a purpose is de rigueur, if you want to use a fancy term, I suppose, what advice would you give to people who have an idea that they want to change the world and they want to do it on their own as an entrepreneur? How would you suggest they go about it?
The world doesn't want to be changed. It's something you're going to have to commit to, and you're going to have to push it, and you're going to have to keep pushing it until somebody turns. And a lot of the things, I mean, I take mining, and everybody sort of, I don't know what people think about mining, but they often think, well, it must be 1,000,000 times better than it was in 1820, where you went down in a bucket of the candle and a canary. I've been in places where the only thing that's different is there is no canary. And maybe they've replaced the candle with a headlamp, but that's about as far as it goes. There are some advances in mining, but I tell you, some of it is on surface, and I wish I had have sometimes got PR or done the posters, where they want to appear to be solving problems and not actually solving problems.
One of the things that always fascinates me about entrepreneurs is did you study at all to do what you're doing?
I think I've studied for 32 years, and people ask me, are you an engineer?
That is such a great answer, actually.
Are you a classic engineer? I studied marketing, and a friend of mine said to me, do you want to come and sell air filters? And my response was, I wanted to be a disc jockey on the radio. And they said I had a face for radio, but not necessarily the voice they were looking for. But a friend said to me, come and sell air filters. I said, what the hell's an air filter? But I think engineering per se, in another word, is problem solver. And I think too many engineers have stuck to the book. I didn't have a book. I didn't have something that said you can't do this. I've done things and we've invented products or created products that I've got patents in 70 countries around the world from a guy who isn't an engineer. So what have all the engineers been doing? And I think sometimes it's the constraint that we put on that you're an engineer. That means you need to color in the lines.
You've kind of answered my next question, which is, do you think that education can help or hinder entrepreneurs? And in some respects for you, the fact that you didn't have an education, the fact that you have spent the last 32 years learning and studying what you do actually is quite positive for you. But the flip side of that would be that guys who've got a classical sort of higher education in engineering may have a foot up because they see things that you might have missed.
Absolutely. Do you know, it's almost, you can't bring it to body parts because I don't know what part I'm going to be, but I know which part most people think I am. But you need everyone. I have people that I rely on. I have people that read calculus on the side of their bed. I've got rock stars on the side of my bed in the Bible. But, these guys are so bright, they lose me. And I'm more of a concept guy, but make no mistake, I have to pass that ball on to the clever guys. And you have to have that. And sometimes it's a bit of a disadvantage to me not having that classic engineering background because I am limited.
But here's the thing, right? It's like your ability to see your limitations must be an incredible strength, because what it allows you to do is it allows you to surround yourself with people who actually can do it.
But you've got to be honest. You've got to, don't be arrogant. That's one of the biggest mistakes you can ever make. I'm pushy and I'm bold, but I'm certainly not arrogant. I hope I'm not arrogant. And I realize my limitations. And that's, as you say, that's an ultimate strength, is knowing where your blind sides are.
What's your biggest frustration being a problem solver? What's the thing that you keep coming up against that goes, oh, not this again?
Money. I sometimes wish I lived in a world where money wasn't as big a priority as it is, that people could dream, people could create beautiful things. But I'm always stuck with some person who goes, it's not in the budget. Can we change this? Can we cut this out? It's like, let me just solve the problem and then worry about the money. I wish that was the case. But you have to be aware that you have to convince the accountant, and you have to sometimes. I have to walk that side, and this is a true story. I remember trying to convince somebody, and I was being my bold sales guy, and I'm trying to sell him, and I realized I just wasn't touching base. And this is the gospel truth. I asked him, would you mind if we just swapped seats? And I think he was suspicious. He didn't know what the hell I was talking about. And I went around and I sat in his chair and I said, I just want to see it from your side of the table.
Wow.
I promise you, I walked out with a sale.
That's
so sales guys, there's a trick. Is go and sit on the other side of the table and see what it feels like.
I am definitely going to try that one. That sounds amazing, man. The last time we had a conversation like this, it was during that debacle called COVID-19, in which the world had changed, and it was a virtual conversation. We're now sitting in person. It was a virtual conversation on Zoom. And one of the things that you said that struck me out of that interview was, and I think it was because COVID was still new, but it was like you were saying, this is the way that business is going to have to be done going forward. Fast forward 4 or 5 years, and we are almost back to a normal way of doing business. Given the choice, I'm going to say, I think I know that you would prefer to do things in person. Why do you think that's just so important to be able to do things face to face?
Eyeball to eyeballs always worked for me. It's hard to, it's very easy to hide behind a Teams meeting where you just blank the screen. I can go watch Netflix, go play with the dog and come back. My mouse, they've actually got mice that now move so that I can actually. So I love eyeball to eyeball. And one of the things that I've learned over the years is even when it goes bad, even when I needed to ask for mercy, I've done it eyeball to eyeball. I don't believe in sending somebody an email or giving them some sort of spiel, or I didn't pay the account, or the check's in the post, or whatever the current thing is. I've sat in front of people and said, listen, I can't pay you. Can you give me a week? Can you give me 2 weeks? And I think there's something about the human connection that I think we've somehow lost in the Teams meeting idea.
And it's amazing. So one of the drawbacks about COVID is that there are still people who refuse to do things face to face. How difficult does it make it to do business with people who just aren't prepared to? I hesitate to say it like this, but to come back to normality, because what we had during this virtual thing where you can't see the person that you're talking to only goes so far. How difficult does it make it to do business for you when you're confronted with that sort of thing?
I think when you're dealing with numbers, people, it's just flat. It's a numbers game. Sometimes the solution that you have to physically be on site. And I walk in and everybody thinks I'm some magician who's going to just stop that stack from polluting and I'm going to wave a wand. I have to understand the process. I have to understand, where does the coal come in? And people just assume that you know everything about their process. They've had 30 years to work on the process. Well, I've got to sit there and sometimes ask really stupid questions, but I'm pretty good at that. Stupid questions is my bag. Yeah. I'm okay. And sometimes the stupid questions aren't so damn stupid after all. You've got to call people out. You've got to say, well, hold on, I don't understand that. Explain it.
Are you saying that that's easier to do face-to-face than
you can only do that face-to-face?
Right. Because otherwise, I mean, you're left with this sense of like, okay, was that a stupid question? Because you can't judge.
I can't see his answer.
No, exactly.
And I don't know. I'm just one of those guys that I like to interact with people. And I'd prefer to sit in a coffee shop and talk it out.
Sure. And
even if we have to box it out, I'm okay with that too.
And you've done boxing before, so I wouldn't recommend that for anybody who wants to try that. What excites you about what you do?
The challenge. Every day is a challenge. There's no formula. There's no one size fits all. I wish there was. I wish I could make one product that solves everybody's dust or air pollution problem. I think what we're getting to is we've moved in a certain direction where nobody was looking. And we've moved into what we call cyclonic separation. Now,
break that down.
Yeah, it's basically any filter system that you have. What you end up with is some sort of a filter that either has to be replaced or there's maintenance or whatever. What we've tried to do is, it's not a new concept. We've just made it new and we've made it in a different way. But it's called pre-filtration. So any existing filter system that you have, what we want to try and do, or even new systems, is we want to try and work on the basis of knock out the heavy stuff before it even gets to your filter system. And I think because a lot of people want to replace filters, want to supply filters, nobody was looking in this area. And we think it's the greatest thing to do going forward is to look towards I wouldn't say filterless filtration, but certainly moving to less reliance on only a filter. Let's look at something that's innovative and saves money.
I can imagine that that's the kind of thing, as innovative and as brilliant as it is from a layperson's perspective, is a major threat to those people who supply air filters, right? So how do you overcome that problem where potentially you could be...
I supply air filters. So
okay.
Indirectly, I shoot myself in the foot and in both feet. Actually, over the years, I've had to change my mindset into going, well, what's for the greater good of the world? What's for the greater good of what I'm trying to achieve? How do I do that effectively without having a slant on what's good for me? What's good for the customer? What's good for the result? What gives me the best result? That's the bottom line.
So you were saying earlier that you've got a bunch of patents. I can't remember the number. Was it 79 globally that you said?
I think the's 70 odd countries around the world.
70 countries, okay, that you've got patents in. What's your kind of, how does one phrase it?
Expensive.
No, it's expensive. But what's your best patent that you think you've developed so far?
I've got a cyclonic system that would be used in the likes of the power stations around the world. So everyone's trying to push away from coal because it's the big bad monster, whatever. I don't think I'm not convinced that it's the coal that's necessarily the problem. I think it's the filtration systems, it's everything else that goes along with it. But coal is the big bad guy. But what we've got is a way of making coal cleaner, which we think is important. And people are not going to just suddenly find something else. I don't know if we're going to get Superman bringing kryptonite to the world, whatever. Coal's still going to be with us for a really long time. I'm only interested in what's coming out the stack.
Right.
I'm interested in everyone else's emissions.
32 years in running your own business, what are you still learning? What still surprises you and catches you off guard? Do you think, I must get up to speed on that?
Technology is a thing that I'm starting to really appreciate. As we said off air, we're getting big into 3D printing. And I've been using it as a tool to make models, and I come up with ideas, and I'll send my business partner, I'll send him a sketch that looks like Picasso. And the next day he'll arrive with this beautiful machine that I've apparently designed, but I can play with it and I can see, hold on, there's a shortfall here. Why didn't I think of that? Or I love this idea of where technology is going, and even products that we're printing now. And I don't know where the future lies, but boy, it's heading in a really exciting space.
The world of running a business for many entrepreneurs like yourself is topsy-turvy, because the one moment you are employing 30 people and you've got a massive team of people that are driving you towards a particular direction, the next minute you've had to lay off staff and you're almost back to square one. How do you cope with that emotional roller coaster where other people's lives are affected by the decisions that you make, and sometimes not by the decisions you make, but by what's happening in the economy, for example?
Exactly. I think I did take it very personally, where you don't employ a person, you employ a family, you employ a lot of things. And I think the weight on leadership, and I remember somebody years ago saying leadership is loneliness. And that's the truth, because you're the bad guy. When you're employing people, everybody loves you. You've changed their life for a period of time. I've got to a point where I realize it's part of the game. If you're not prepared to let people go when the time arrives, don't be the guy hiring them. Yeah. It's the deal. You have to, because your business goes through these cycles, and you can't. And I've made the mistakes of hanging on to people because I felt sorry for them, and found that was really like a noose around my neck, or it really wasn't good for the business. So you've got to make those tough decisions, and that's one of the hardest things, is working with people.
And I think people who don't run their own businesses don't understand how difficult that is, right? I mean, I think it's not the first time that I've heard it, but it catches me every time, is that you're not just employing one person, you are taking care of a family. And to have to deal with that can make it often untenable to actually run a business. Do you think that's why some people actually stop running a business, because of the weight of that responsibility?
Absolutely. I remember being on the other side when I was really young, and you hated the boss, and the boss was an arse, and he was so unreasonable. Why couldn't I do this? And I don't know. I've always been the kid at the back of the class who really was more a unionist, causing crap. That's sort of one of my natural instincts, is to find out what's wrong with the leader. But when you are the leader, it's a very different view.
Yeah.
And I've been doing that.
Self-reflection's not always easy, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And you make mistakes over the years, and you hang on to certain people, and then you make a mistake where you let the wrong person go. I'm not perfect, and I really don't want to be.
Yeah.
I think it's part of my lessons to learn in life as well.
Some people may call you an absolute masochist, in the sense that you are an entrepreneur, your wife is an entrepreneur, and now your two girls are entrepreneurs as well. Does that excite you, or does it leave you feeling terrified sometimes?
My house is a zoo, as you can see. I go to work and it's quiet. I love it. But I'm so excited that today to have a family of entrepreneurs is so damn exciting because I can see how they're struggling. And I think as my problem solver, I want to jump in. I want to save my girls. And Di's a little harder. And she goes, hold on, what lessons are they learning? And I've had to pull back and go, maybe they should struggle. And all of a sudden, I'm starting to see my girls have got character. And and I hear them on the phone, sorry, I can't pay that account. Can I get to you tomorrow? Or I love it.
Yeah.
I love the fact that, and I don't think you could be really, if you don't have an understanding. And one of the faults I made early on was trying to keep everything from my kids. If we had difficulties, and we've had many, if I was going through a difficult patch, I would sort of withdraw and I better man up and I better work harder. Sometimes that saying to the girls, listen, sweetheart, you're not getting that set of tackies. We're not going on that holiday because I just don't have the money. And at first it was like uncomfortable because now it's my masculine manhood at stake. But now they understand.
Yeah.
They're going through it and it's wonderful.
They obviously have learned from you. I think it's impossible for people not to learn from one another. But what have you learned from your two daughters and from your wife in the way that they conduct themselves?
They are so much smarter than I am. I tell you, if I had, like if I had all her gifts and all her talent, I'd be a trillionaire because she's really smart and she's really wise. My daughters have a tenacity. And I think they get some of it from me. I hope they do. But they have a tenacity. And I see Sabrina crying at 2:00 in the morning. And she's been baking and she's got to be up at 4. I'm so excited for her. And I see Skylar. She's a fighter. At one stage, I didn't think she was. She's a damn good fighter.
Yeah.
And I love to see this.
Yeah. And there must be something like immensely satisfying. As you were saying you get really excited and fired up, but there must be something really satisfying being able to sit around the table as a family, which you do, which is also unusual, given the fact that you all run your own businesses, you've all got to have an ego, but also like the fact that you are a family that's stuck together through the good times and the bad times. Something immensely satisfying about sitting down and talking about the stuff that you're doing, because it's all completely different.
Yeah. It is. It's really exciting. And we started this at an early age, where the table, Di was the great cook and we'd all sit around it, but she insisted no phones at the table. This was our time to chat. And that started out, we like this boy or we like that boy or this guy's the new thing. And so we kept that up. Now it's become more about, what do we do with this? What do we do with that? But what's exciting as a father is one day I'm going to die. And I'm very aware of, I think the older you get, the more you realize this isn't forever. I want to know that my family is fine when I'm gone. That's the honest truth. That's what I really want. But I don't want them to wait for an inheritance of something. I want to know that these guys can fish. These guys can make something happen when I'm not there. That to me is the greatest thing I can give them, is to encourage them to stand on their own feet. So when I'm out of the picture one day, they don't collapse.
There's such wisdom in that. And I mean, it could be because we think similarly. I'm sure that there are other fathers who would want to say, no, I want to give my family everything so that they never have to worry about anything ever again. But the wisdom that seems to me to come through from that is that by teaching your daughters, you use the analogy of how to fish, it's actually you giving them far more than a massive inheritance, which would be nice. I'm sure they would. I'm sure they would go, Dad, give us the money.
They can buy more material, buy more cookie dough.
Yeah, but there's so many. I guess, and again, sweeping generalization. I realize that fathers, parents who don't do that for their kids, do you think they're worse off?
I think ultimately they are, because one of the things that you often think is, is it about the money? It's not all about the money. It's really about how am I equipping others for their journey. It's not my journey. I eat cookies, but it's not my journey, it's theirs. And they've got to learn lessons in life that are not just about business lessons. I think the one thing is there's so much to learn, because business is about humans. It's about interaction. And you could do with a psychology degree, you could do with an engineering degree, and stick it all in one pot and you'd still be battling. So I think it's about life. It's a journey. And I remember that film, Life is a House. It's like business. It was I'm trying to think, Kevin
Bacon?
No.
Oh.
He was in A Fish Called Wonder.
Oh, Kevin, yeah. I want to say Klein, but was it Kevin Klein?
Kevin Klein.
It was Kevin Klein. Yeah.
And he had a drug addict son, and they built a house together, and it was Life is a House. Business is life too.
Yeah.
That's really what it's about.
Rewind 3 decades, and there's a young Darren ready to take on the world, ready to change the world, ready to box anybody who gets in his way. What would you do differently with the knowledge that you have now?
I think I'd be an estate agent. I don't know if I would do anything different.
Yeah. Because that's the thing about entrepreneurs. It's in you, right? It's
it is.
You may have a different kind of business, but you'd still be doing business of some
The greatest gift my dad gave me was, he was a fitter and turner. He was a factory guy. And he said, don't work in a factory. But he didn't sit down and say, hey, Darren, what do you want to be?
Yeah.
He just said, Darren, do what you want to do. And I view that as, one of my best friends is my dad. And he worked for me at one point, and we worked really well together, but he didn't tell me what to do. And I think if I was to do it all again, I would change some things, but I would do exactly what I'm doing. I think this is a calling.
Yeah,
I really do.
Interesting. I wonder how many entrepreneurs out there would say their business is their calling, because it's, you often think, teaching is a calling, or becoming a religious minister is a calling, or whatever. But actually being an entrepreneur is a calling. And it does lead me to the next question, is how important do you think SMMEs like yourself and small businesses or micro businesses like myself, like Milk and Sugar, are in building or giving the economy a chance to grow?
I think it's the only place to grow. I don't like this idea of state entities. I think the state should just leave it all. And there's certain things that the state needs to do: protect us, create an army, keep us safe, keep us, and do the general thing. But they shouldn't be employers. Yeah. This is where it ends. This is where it starts. You build a house, any house, you're employing 200, 300 people. Directly, indirectly, from bricklayers to top engineers to architects, whatever. That's what we need to do. We need to get it from, and it's going to start. It's already starting. Everyone's got to realize that there's no big corporate jobs anymore. Well,
what does excite me a lot is the fact that they're particularly sort of millennials and Gen Z, if one wants to categorize. They're hustlers. They want to be doing something. It might not be the right thing in terms of the way that you and I would think, becoming an influencer as a career path. But the fact of the matter is that there are youngsters who, like your daughters particularly, who are trying to make a go of it in the world and are trying to form businesses and work for themselves and do something for themselves. That must be incredibly encouraging for a nation.
Absolutely. I think, look at where we are. The technology's there. We had to go to shows, trade shows and these kind of things to get out your message. Now you've got Instagram and LinkedIn and all these things. They tools. And I think that we've got almost like we're looking back now, because we're the old farts. And we're looking back going, okay, well, they could change this. The jury's not out because they haven't got to our age yet. They're going to make mistakes. But it's exciting. And what we thought when we were 20 was cool, our parents thought was lame or we were going to go nowhere. I don't remember my parents being excited about my life ahead.
How much do you think running your business is like supporting Liverpool? Because you are a big Liverpool supporter, and congratulations on winning the league.
Thank you.
Yeah, well done.
But we've had many bad years. It's exactly the same as running a business.
Yeah.
It's been a bloody hard road being a Liverpool supporter for the years. But I was born in Liverpool, so I didn't have much choice. I got Liverpool tattooed on my arse. But it's like life.
Yeah.
It's a struggle. And if you only support a team when it wins, I used to, people used to support Man United and Tiger Woods and Mike Tyson. I mean, flipping hell, you couldn't lose.
Yeah, exactly.
At one point. So when you're a Liverpool supporter, for how long?
Yeah.
Because I see a lot of new T-shirts coming out.
Yeah.
I've had that tattoo for a while.
Yeah.
But I just love the spirit of Liverpool.
Sure.
It's like the underdog to a degree.
But then it's also about that moment when, after years and years of struggle, you succeed. And is that the thing that keeps you going year after year, even through the bad times, that one day you may lift the trophy?
We spoke off air about the idea of rewards and about rewarding yourself. I used to think, when do you celebrate? When you get the order, and then you think, oh, but I still have to do the work and I still have to be paid. By the time you get paid, you're back to square one. And I think it's more a game of snakes and ladders, where sometimes you're up and then you hit a snake and you're down. I think you've got to celebrate at every stage. And you've got to stop yourself every now and again and go, I don't know how I reward myself, maybe a cup of coffee or take a little bit of time out to travel, whatever. I think if you don't, you're foolish. Stop every now and again and go, it was a good day today, because there's many bad days, so enjoy the good ones.
Can I tell you, a couple of weeks ago, we were speaking to your daughters, and the one thing that they said was about you've taught them to celebrate their failures, which is also an important thing. But I want to concentrate on what you've just said, because when we first met, 20 years ago, maybe now, I remember the one thing, and I'm so glad you brought it up in this interview, because I remember the one thing that you said to me as I was starting my business is celebrate the victories, no matter how big or how small they are. And it's actually something that I've lived by as a business. So it's like I might get a small contract and I say, it's like you say, it could just be having a coffee and going, well done, we've done this. Do you think that that's a lesson that more people need to learn?
If you don't, it's really, it's like golf. I mean, I play off a 200. So if you did hit a great drive, you're coming back. If you catch that one fish, even though you haven't caught anything for the last 100 times you went, you're coming back for that next fish.
Yeah.
And if you don't celebrate it, you don't enjoy it, it's too hard a ride to not have the intervals of, enjoy this moment.
Well, speaking of enjoying moments, I have really enjoyed chatting to you, Darren. Thank you so much for the wisdom that you've shared. And I think also just telling your story. Stories are such an important part of how we run businesses and how we either succeed or fail, but we do it together by learning from one another.
Exactly.
So I appreciate the fact that you have given your time. And it's been wonderful over the last couple of weeks to chat to your family and just learn something from each of them in a different way. So you've been watching Mavericks, the Milk and Sugar Effects podcast series. It has been great to have you along for the ride. I certainly hope that you've enjoyed Darren's story as much as I have. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and share this far and wide. Love you. Goodbye.